Currently on tour, but taking the time out of her day to talk all about her newest album, we got the chance to speak with Billie Marten all about her newest record, Drop Cherries. What you're about to hear is our phone conversation, so please enjoy. Well, I'm really excited to talk to you about this. I promise I won't take up too much of your time, but I've really been enjoying your new record, so I've got some new questions to ask you about it.
Great.
So
Let's hear it.
obviously, yeah, totally. So, like I said, I love this thing, and for me, it's a very lyric forward record. Obviously, there's some great stories being told on here, but I'd love to hear it from your perspective. Is it a
Mm.
series of like isolated stories, or is there one overarching message you're trying to put into this record? How did it work for you?
Well, it's the first album that's kind of correlated with a direct person-to-person relationship because previously they've been about definite moments I've had with people, but not necessarily a cognitive narrative. So there's certainly the first few songs that started coming out were the ones about the early stages of a relationship and how you just can't describe, what's happening, and there's feelings of confusion, but also intense kind of joy. And I wanted to get the more positive side of my music out there because I feel like the narrative just has to keep on evolving for it to be accurate to me. And then you've got kind of celebrating the mundane in the relationship, songs like Just Us. That one was just written when we both had COVID, actually, and I had to cancel a load of festivals, and we were locked in this basement flat with literally two flies.
The
So they were our
worst.
only companions. So that song came out at that time. And then I guess you've got I will always lean into the introspective because that's just how I write. So things like Devil Swim and Arrows are kind of a reflection on yourself whilst you're with someone else and how helpful that can be and how much it aids you and sculpts you as a person.
Nice.
So you could do individual vignettes, but you could also, it's a long form album and it's the way that it should be listened to, I guess.
Sure. No, I totally understand. It's one of those records for me at least that I'm not skipping around. I feel that you've really created the
Mm.
album experience here. You know what I mean? You click start and you let it run through and you experience it as a whole instead of putting it on shuffle like so many people like to do nowadays. Yeah, just not how it's meant to be. Another standout for me though is, obviously you operate as a solo artist on the outside, but I can only imagine that there's a team behind you helping put things together. How was it working in the background as far as like production and mixing? And are there any people you'd like to sort of shout out in that regard?
Oh, of course. Yeah, this is my favorite thing. Because obviously my life is basically noting down parts of myself and then talking about myself
Right,
forever.
exactly.
So,
It's a no,
so
honestly, being an artist can be a very selfish thing, but people don't realize that there's a lot more that goes into it than that.
oh, massively. I mean, every part of music is collaborative if you really think about it.
Yeah,
Apart from the bit where you're doing your own vocal take, but
right.
even then, someone's recording it for you. So, um, well, of course, Don Monks is the guy that I made it with, and we did the second album together. He is a very unique character, and when you're having an album experience with him, it's just like no other, and he just has this perfect way of knowing and finding the essence of a live take, which is how the album just came out, and also down to the power of brilliant musicians such as Casper Miles, who's the drummer on there, and he plays with me live. Harry Fowsing Smith is incredible. He made all the string arrangements, and we met on the third record. He also did some strings on there as well.
Nice.
And he brought in this trio and just has the most beautiful ear. Who else? Holly Henderson was this. She's, I think, the only person that I didn't know on the record. She came in to do additional guitar parts on electric. Is just incredibly laid back. Finds the essence of the song very easily.
Yeah.
Kind of a top pro.
Yeah, these are
Uh,
irreplaceable people, truly.
yeah, I mean, there's so many people.
Right. No, I mean, yeah,
People coming in every day.
I'm not gonna make you sit here and talk for an hour about every single person because I know that it would be impossible. Um,
Yeah.
but obviously, you've surrounded yourself with the right people and put out something truly great. Um, I know a lot of people though they have trouble really sitting there and listening to an album as a whole. And I know this is sort of a tough question because all these songs mean so much to you, but if you had to pick maybe a handful of them that stand out to you, either because they're the most meaningful or they're the most attention grabbing,
Mm.
do you have a selection by chance?
What immediately came to mind was the song Willow, um, because it was written at the very beginning of last year's US tour in Seattle,
Okay.
and it was very much about dealing with having physical distance between you and your person, and I had to write that song in order to cope with that, so I could sing it every day and it would take me back home.
Right.
Um, so when I play that one live, I ask if anybody's in love and if they're in love with someone that's very far away right now, and people always put their hands up, and I think it's something that kind of people just sort of put their heads down and get on and deal with it, and it's really hard. It's really hard when
Yeah.
you're so far away. So that means a lot to me. But honestly, it's such a pleasure to write something and be able to give it to someone else.
Of course.
And
Yeah, these are like
yeah,
snapshots of your life, and every time you sing them, I'm sure it takes you back to a time and place.
it does. Yeah, very specific images
Yeah.
in my head.
It's a beautiful thing. Um, Obviously, I've listened to the rest of your music too, and it consistently puts a smile on my face, but it also creates that sort of introspection that I think translates from the music that you're creating to the listener.
Mm.
Going forward, are you going to be ever looking to experiment more with your sound? Do you feel that you've sort of found your lane? Um, any notes on that regard?
I certainly feel like this album was always the album that I wanted to make from the start.
Sure.
In terms of direct musical influences and not being kind of swayed by the musical time that we're in. But then also, each day I wake up and I get that little tingly feeling that's starting to think about new music again. And there's just so many different avenues one can go down within a musical career. And I think I'm also aware that I have so much more time. And in 10 years, I might have a completely different label to put on myself, or I may not even be in music, who knows? So I'm kind
Right.
of just focusing very much on the present and understanding what I like now, and not focusing on the fact that I might regret it later.
Sure. No, that's a great answer. That's kind of the hard part of being a musician, big or small, is there's no rules. You know what I mean? There's no steps one, two, and three. You kind of just figure it out
A
on a
handbook of
daily. Yeah,
songwriting.
it's truly wild. um,
Yeah.
yeah. I also feel like as an artist, you're always learning new things. Are there any
Oh,
things?
massively.
Yeah. Are there any things that you took from previous records that you've applied to this one?
Uh, I'm learning much more now to really think about the art of performance rather than just getting all the notes right, which is how I used to do it before, because I was timid in the studio, and I just wanted everything to be perfect and acceptable. Whereas now, and especially live, I think that's the area that I've kind of avoided up until the past year in terms of really trying to get my teeth into it and to enjoy it, is the fact that performance is so very important, and it really makes a difference to the listener. They can hear you smiling on
Yeah.
a vocal take, or they can hear you in pain or tired or whatever. It's like all of my favorite performances have some sort of human essence to it, and I think I'm learning now to welcome that in.
No, that's a great point. I also feel like at any concert ever, there's always going to be a handful of people there that don't even know who you are, who may have gotten dragged to the show, or
Oh yeah,
a friend talked highly of you or them or whoever it is, and yeah, you're always performing to an audience of people that you don't know. They're all strangers. Um,
Hmm.
how do you kind of get in the headspace for that? Like, obviously you're in a different city every night and you're moving around, but like, I don't know. How do you find you adjust over time?
It's crazy. You have to have a certain amount of adrenaline. 2% even is enough to get your body into gear to be able to do that for an hour and a half every night.
Right.
If I don't have adrenaline, I get worried because, you know, and you're then just exhausted as the other end. It's either adrenaline, full adrenaline, or like complete exhaustion. But last night was a good example in terms of getting into headspace because there were two men at the bar and they were the only ones that were lit. So they were the only ones I could see, and everybody else was right there with me and singing every word and crying and like just very,
Yeah, of
very
course,
emotive
of course.
people.
Yeah.
And then there were just these two dudes like with backwards caps on that were obviously here with their girlfriends who bought tickets. They didn't want to be there,
Yeah.
and they were just buying pints and literally talking the whole time.
God,
Not
the
even like
worst.
fake clapping and
No.
talking, just like completely ignoring me. So I said to them, I said, I never do this, but you two at the bar, you're not listening, and it's really putting me off. And I would just like it if you could listen or leave.
Good for you.
I've
Seriously.
never done that before in my life because it's such a dick move, but it was
No,
distracting me
it's
and it was
not.
ruining the show for everyone else. So,
No, I love that so much, and honestly, good for you. Like, I'm being so sincere right now. I go to, I'm not a touring musician, but I probably go to 3 to 4 shows a week at this point. And
that's amazing.
standing next to people who clearly don't want to be there, who just treat it like their hangout hour, is truly the
Yeah, it's
most
like go to a
annoying thing.
bar.
Oh my God, thank you. Go to a
Oh,
bar. Go to literally anywhere else. Like,
leave your girlfriends there. They will be
yes.
fine.
Yeah. Do you not
Goodbye.
right? Do you not realize there was an artist bearing their soul on stage and you're just hanging out having a drink? Like, oh my God, kills me.
I
Um,
know.
I
Big
was
time.
gonna, I was gonna ask, like any crazy touring stories or anything like that, but honestly, you've answered my question because that's
Okay, great.
that's about as that's about as good as it gets right there. Um,
Yeah.
I don't have too many more for you, just a few more, but I want to know, during the show, do you feel that there is a single song that kind of unites the audience the most, the one that really either stokes the most emotions or gets people excited?
The one, well, I try to get people together during a song called Mice, which is a very laid back. I basically get them to sway in the room, so they all
Nice.
sway in like a wave, which is really nice for me because I get to see them all singing together, and I guess it just unites everyone in the room. Um, but there's lots of moments. Liquid Love as well. I do as this little encore thing where they sing most of it and they provide the backing track for me to sing the main thing over, which is nice. And it just, I think it just makes everybody relax. Like there's not this invisible shield between me and you. We are one in this room together. I'm having just as much fun as you are.
Yeah.
Whatever unites the crowd, I think.
Exactly. And everyone's going to experience different songs differently, so there's no right answer.
Well, then, yeah, so for that reason, I put a solo section in the middle each time, which is I just ask them what they want to hear and then I'll play it for them so no one's left kind of disappointed.
No, that's perfect. I think more artists should do that. Um, we are about a week away from being at the halfway point of 2023, and it's kind of crazy that this
Oh, my
year.
goodness.
I know, yeah. Tell me about it. This year has just flown right by. Are there any things in the back half of the year that you're most looking forward to, or just like potentially some goals that you'd like to hit?
I've been going on this album campaign / touring thing since mid-March.
Yeah.
So after this week, I'm going to take 2 months off.
Beautiful. Well deserved.
Aside from festivals and stuff.
Sure.
But I am. I'm also touring back in the US in autumn, so it's kind of, and in the UK as well.
Nice.
It's all going again from September, but I'm actually looking forward to Christmas time because that's usually the time where I feel like I haven't done enough that year, or I haven't been present enough or thankful enough or whatever. And I can tell now from already on the halfway point that it's going to have been a good year. You know,
Sure,
I'm very lucky to have experienced so much human life in 6 months already. So many different cultures and backgrounds and just wild things that I never would have normally seen or experienced. And yeah,
no,
feeling very lucky.
I totally agree. I think being on tour and literally experiencing a different culture every night, even though it's the US and like we don't have much culture here, but each state changes,
Yes, you
you
do.
know what
It's massively different. Yeah.
yeah, it's tough being here and realizing it, but I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Well, I'm lucky.
yeah, my last question for you is basically for the person that is going to discover you from this conversation, what is an opening message you'd like to say to them before they listen to your music for the first time?
I'd say this is probably music for the person that wants to feel better about themselves.
Nice.
Speaking to a lot of young girls that I've met on tour.
Yeah, I mean that seems to be the general sentiment is that's your audience, but I think that also translates to everyone. Um, I just
Yeah,
think,
totally.
yeah, in the world
I
that
mean,
we're
you
living
know,
in.
full-grown men have cried into my arms. It's just it is just, I just think the power of sort of quiet truth, you know.
Sure. I've yet to see you in concert, but I might be the next big grown man to cry in your arms. We'll see.
Fantastic. I can't wait.
Love it. Bailey, I want to thank you so much for taking the time. It truly means a lot.
Of course, yeah.
Let me please plug your music for you for everyone out there.
Thank
If you
you.
guys missed it the first time around, the new album is called Drop Cherries. We will have the links in our articles so that you can listen and share and follow along and just generally stay tuned. It sounds like there's so much more coming in the near future, and I'm excited to see what happens. I hope you have an
Yeah.
amazing rest of your tour, a safe flight home, and a relaxed rest of your year.
I'll try. Thank you so
Awesome.
much, Austin.
Thank you so much. I'll talk to you later.
All right.
All
Bye
right.
bye.
Bye bye.